speech, I think I ought to reply and say a few words, because a bit of explanation actually for that unbelievable triumph that I had in Zurich. And the fact is that I was playing with a certain Seb Cooley.
Even so, he was lucky to have you.
And the story is that I, as various people here will know, by a mixture of playing, as Ashley and Chris will know, I was playing with. We played sort of 8 rounds, and I got into the last 8. Just managed to get into the last 8, and then they decided who would go into the quarterfinals, and I managed to get into the quarterfinals. And who was my partner but Seb Cooley. So here was I with Seb. We got into the final, and there was Seb and me playing John and Igor from Zurs. And John generously decided he wouldn't play against me, he'd play against Seb. And it was a battle of the titans, basically. It's like being in a missile field, standing at the side with John driving hard to Seb, and Seb driving hard to John driving hard to Seb. So it went on, and I was just standing aside, occasionally putting in a hand to make sure he got something up, and by a quirk of fate we won. So that was the result of that. But I thought, as I'm standing up, I ought to say something about this marvellous game which people of my vintage can play with youngsters like yourselves, and it is a great game. I was saying to Ronald early on this evening, Fives is one of those few games that I know of where people in their 50s or 60s or even older can play reasonably competitive games with youngsters like yourselves, as you will be able to do, hopefully, in 10, 20, 30 years old. So it's a fantastic game. And I say this to Peter, who I've said it to recently, that that's the great advantage of this game. No other game that I know, other court game, has this fantastic advantage. And it will be, I think, a great selling point when it comes to selling the game to the school. As an example of this, and I'm not going to read all of this, I had to enter the veterans 2 years ago, and I lost my partner, not through mortality, but I was playing with Richard Black did something to his knee, and I couldn't play with Richard, who I normally play with. So I sent out a note, which some of Harriet has seen it, and I'm sure Ronald will have seen it, in which I said to all the veterans, veteran Fives player, 74 years on clock, still a good runner, drives well, no visible defects, though Jan might have them.
Inside not.
Performed well in recent Alpine rally, that's what Zurs. Grillon tested. Any offers for a spin on the 27th of April, which was the date of the veterans. And it went out, and I had a reply from somebody. Well, we're not far off there. Another available veteran, only 65 years old, but not a good runner, can waddle across the court. Altitude condition attempted, but only introduced more choke. Also attempted 60-hour Le Grillon, but retired. And this was from another Cooley. Unfortunately, it wasn't Sam. It was John. So I ended up playing with John Cooley, and I said to him something which I've got written down here, which I can't find somewhere on this chain mail which I've got. Yes, anyway, so I accepted John's fantastic offer, and we ended up playing together. So I've been playing with Cooleys of every generation for the last 2 years, and it's worked out very well. What I would end up by saying, because I need to get a toast out of this, very important, because I like to make a toast to 2 people, actually. And John has mentioned the the fact that we have this wide-ranging, inclusive club now, which we have all of you here who've come and associated with this club, which I think is absolutely amazing, that the club is now opened up to a whole variety of new people. And Ronald, who I've just been talking to, is doing exactly the same with the Jesters, and broadening the Jesters so it becomes less of an exclusive club, but open to a whole variety of players. So the club, Fives, is opening up, and I think this is exactly what we want to do at the school. We want to open up the courts to a whole variety of people, so it becomes less of an exclusive game and more of a game that everybody can play, because it's a game that everybody should play. So what I'd like to do is have a toast to John and Ronald for creating that spirit, that culture, which Fives becomes the sort of game that everybody can play. John.
Yeah.